Guys, episode 5? Episode 5 did not come to play. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Alicia here, and we are reviewing The Ultimatum Season 3, Episode 5. Let's get right on into it. I do have my notes on my phone, so I will be looking down and looking back up. The new episodes will drop on Wednesday, December 11th, and I already know it's about to be some foolishness. We start off with JR and Sandy talking. Now, I will say they do get deep. They get deeper than I was expecting, but I feel like JR somehow always finds a reason to bring the conversation back to something physical. I don't know if he's trying to like overcompensate or like really lead into, you know, the physical attraction that he does have for Sandy. I don't know, but one thing JR is gonna do is gonna bring it back to physical. But he does talk about how he is still holding on to the infidelity from his previous marriage, and honestly, that's why I said, or in my notes, that's why I said I don't think that he is ready for marriage, because you can't really be ready for marriage if you are still holding on to something from your previous relationship, because you are no longer in that relationship. No one deserves to be cheated on, but at some point, for your own personal mental health, you have to let that go, because at the end of the day, the person who cheated is the one at fault. There are reasons why people cheat, and like maybe JR can say to himself like, okay, well, I wasn't showing up, I wasn't giving her the attention she needed, or I wasn't making time for her, or I wasn't loving her the way that she had expressed she wanted to be loved. I can now take those life lessons into my next relationship. Like, there are things that you can do on your own without ever getting, because it sounds like he didn't ever really get closure from that past hurt, and so that's why he's still kind of holding on to it. But there are things that you can do for yourself to give yourself that closure, because at the end of the day, that person still decided to cheat. That's not on you, that's on them, and they have to live with that and their choices. Because honestly, if your partner is not doing something that you have repeatedly expressed you want them to do, leave. But you also have to take accountability or take responsibility for really looking at yourself and saying, okay, was I doing my best and it still wasn't enough for that person? Or was I not mature enough to really hear what they were saying to me? Because they were young. Like, JR did say they got married young, okay? I did find it interesting that Sandy did finally admit that she does want a family and marriage. Like, she's saying that she is actually interested in a family, in marriage, and that it's easier to open up to JR than it is to open up with, I think her original partner is Nick. Yes, because Dave was with Vanessa. Based on how Nick acted in this episode, I completely understand that. We will get there, but I can understand that. I can see why Sandy would be a little bit more guarded with Nick versus with JR, because JR, you know, he would have a whole lot of like sexual innuendos, but he and Sandy do also have a very easy banter. Then we go to Zaina and Scotty. Zaina and Scotty meet Zaina's friends and family. Everybody can see Zaina and Scotty got something going on. There is some chemistry there. The friends are liking him. They ask some pretty deep questions, which I liked, because I hate when they meet the friends and family and like the friends and family don't have any good questions. So I'm glad that Zaina's friends were actually asking some good questions. And then her sister said, all right, enough with the games. Her sister came out the gate swinging. She said, enough with towing around the biggest issue in this room, okay? Or the sister says, you know, she loves JR. I don't know why, because I feel like JR and Zaina's relationship wasn't that deep. But JR, I can see, is a pretty cool person, so, you know, whatever. But the sister, Hannah, says she loves JR and she'd be sad if they didn't work out. Hannah asked Zaina if JR were to propose to Zaina tomorrow, would she say yes? Zaina says no. And Hannah, the sister's face just drops. But Zaina does bring up a good point. I can't remember what all she said, but basically what she was saying was, you know, because of this experience, I am learning more things about myself and what I want. And so she said she could leave single or with somebody else. But as of right now, it doesn't sound like she's going to be leaving with JR. Oh, and then we get to Arya and Caleb. Now, Arya and Caleb, they're so cute, guys. They are so cute together. But Caleb does get, well, no, I won't even say that. I'll get to that in a minute. But they are a good example of a slow burn, okay? When you be reading those slow burn romance books, this is what I'm picturing. The slow, easy way that they're learning each other, that they are starting to fall in love with each other. That's just my speculation. But the ease with how they are with each other, the way that Caleb is always showing up for Arya, planning these cute little things, and how Arya then in turn shows up for Caleb. Like, one of the main things that Scotty was saying was that Arya is not very into physical touch, but when Arya and Caleb have the s'mores date, Caleb gets her to start becoming comfortable with physical touch because he takes it slow, he takes it at her pace. And so the more I see Arya and Caleb together, and the more I see her opening up in Caleb's presence, I wonder to myself, how do Scotty and Arya treat each other? Because Arya and Scotty, the more I see them with the trial marriage partners, the more I'm like, I don't feel like Arya and Scotty make a lot of sense. Like, I feel like this is one of those relationships where the proximity helped, and then they just got comfortable in the relationship and they didn't really want to do the extra work of finding other people to date and stuff. Because how happy and then Arya, I think she even says in this episode, she has never laughed, or she hasn't laughed this much in a long time. I get it, the dating pool is scary, but please, this experiment, if nothing else, is showing you that there might be a better fit for you out there somewhere. And then we get to JR and Sandy. Now this is when I first started saying that JR is diabolical. Even though I would joke on JR a lot, I never thought to myself, like I always thought to myself, he's just unserious. You know, to me, he comes off as somebody whose relationships are very like casual, very surface level. He was getting a little bit deeper with Sandy as far as like his upbringing, how the cheating affected him on his wife's side, how young he got married and things like that, how he was, or how he is, a pastor's kid. But when JR and Sandy meet Sandy's friends and family, the stuff that JR was saying at that table, I know last video I was saying I would be physically ill. Watching this back, if I was Zaina and they end up staying together, this is when I would have to stand up and walk out. No words, no nothing. Because JR, he's talking to Sandy's friends, and he says that when he saw Sandy, it was love at first sight. Love at first sight? Are you serious? I feel like that was disrespectful, because I think the family and friends were asking why they ended up coupling up or something like that. And that's when JR said, oh, well, it was love at first sight. And then Sandy's mom was flirting with him low-key. That kind of made me uncomfortable, because I was like, oh. And then her friends get diabolical, even though I kind of felt them on this, because Nick was robbed and going through this experience with somebody, with a trial wife, because his partner left with her original partner. So I do feel for him on that, but Mariah was still there. So quite honestly, he could have at least tried to be a trial husband to Mariah, and like y'all could have gone through like some self-reflection and stuff, talk stuff out together. But Nick, the more he talks, the more I'm like, you are kind of self-absorbed. But I say all that to say, Sandy's friends were like, oh, it's nice to, what did they say? It's nice to see the man willing to pull some weight. Nick, so you out here barely doing the bare minimum? If that's the case, I see why Sandy was already checking out the table, episode 1. And they keep throwing out the word vulnerability. Like Sandy and JR, if Sandy says, oh, the weather really affected my mood today, JR will be like, oh, thank you for being so vulnerable with me. That's not, but okay, you know what, whatever. I'm gonna let them have it, because they had not stopped touching each other throughout that whole meeting with the friends and family. Like, JR was rubbing all up and down Sandy's leg. Sandy was pointing out and rubbing on his, tattoos, and his hand tattoos, his arm tattoos. The mom was rubbing up on his arm, talking about some, I thought I knew you were built. I felt that when you hugged me. No, man. We flash back to Nick's apartment. Baby, Nick is crashing out, okay? Nick is having a breakdown because I don't know if he's never watched The Ultimatum or if he just never expected things to get this far, or like I've seen on TikTok where he is just upset at the fact that Sandy coupled up with JR. You know, Nick was the first to say that Sandy and JR are just here for the physical and just here for vibes. They are not here to work on being better partners in their original relationship. Now keep that in mind, okay? Keep that in your back pocket like a mouse tool, because that's gonna come in handy and help us later. Nick is breaking down because he learns that JR met Sandy's family. That's why I said I don't know if he's never watched The Ultimatum, because that's par the course. But he called her. Now, we get two different scenes, okay? So we get the camera view of Nick calling Sandy, and then we get the camera view of Sandy and JR with Sandy's phone on the countertop on speaker. So Nick says that he loves Sandy, he's scared, and he's scared, I'm assuming, of losing her. Sandy hangs up, okay? And Nick is like, hello? Hello? He shook. He cannot believe that he said he loves her and she hung up on him. He calls back and they talk on speakerphone for a while. I'm assuming the next clip that we get is Nick putting on his shoes and whatnot, walking out the door of his apartment. He goes upstairs to Sandy and JR's apartment and he knocking on that door, okay? He knocking on the door like a lone shark that you have been ducking and dodging for 2 weeks. Finally, JR goes to answer the door. Keep in mind, while this is happening, Sandy is in their bedroom, but she does not come out, okay? Sandy is in their bedroom watching, like, but she does not come out. So JR and Nick are arguing at the door. JR is telling him, like, look, this is not conducive for the experiment. You need to leave. And this is when I said, oh, Nick does have undertones. When JR first answers the door, he's very calm, very like, hey dude, I don't think that this is a good idea. I think you should leave. It is only when Nick starts getting beside himself and starts yelling in JR's face, talking about some, no, I need to see her right now. I need to see her right now. You need to move out the way because I need to talk to Sandy right now. And JR had said, Sandy does not want to talk to you right now, okay? Still in that very calm voice that he talks to everybody he has been talking to everybody else with on this show this whole time. It's only as Nick continues to get loud and beside himself that JR begins to get loud and starts to buck up a little bit, because he's like, now you are being disrespectful. I told you that Sandy did not want to talk to you. You pushing the issue. And that's when I said, oh, Nick, you tried to play us. Nobody was buying it, of course. But Nick, you tried to play us. And this is how you act when you are the one who brought Sandy on this show. And honestly, Nick was not even having all of this energy until his connection left. After Nick leaves, Sandy is talking to JR. She's visibly upset. And she's saying how Nick wants him and Sandy to go home. He wants to be done with this experiment, but Sandy's like, no. And then what cracked me up a little bit was that after that whole thing goes, her and JR start talking, and she's like, I blocked him, because I think JR said you should probably block him at least for the night or something like that. And she said, oh, I already did. But then we cut from them back to Nick all alone in his little apartment, sobbing, wailing, breaking up, because I have my subtitles on. It said wails, Nick wails. Oh, the producers were a little diabolical. The producers were a little petty for that. I said, now, y'all did not have to give us such a long montage of Nick breaking down because Sandy does not want to leave. And then we cut to Aria and Caleb. And Aria says she wishes that Scotty would act more like Caleb. Keep that in mind. I feel like that's going to come into play maybe in episode 6 and on when they get back together. I don't know. But I do think from the little snippets we saw of Scotty and Aria interacting, I don't think that they are a safe space for each other. Like, I don't think that they give each other a safe place to land, nothing. But when you see Arya and Caleb together, Caleb is patient. And so I feel like that allows Arya to blossom in a way that we do not see her blossoming with Scotty. Now we switch over to Scotty and Zaina, and this is where I start leaning more into the fact that maybe the bigger issue is that Scotty does not know how to handle rejection in any form. When we get to Scotty and Zaina, he's wanting to get out of the house. Perfectly fine. So he starts throwing out date ideas, okay? He mentions a hot air balloon. Zaina says she's not really feeling that because she feels like she would have anxiety and not have fun on that date. So Scotty's like, okay. Scotty says cryotherapy. Now why that would be a date idea, I don't know. You know, maybe that sounds fun to somebody, but I was with Zaina when she said, no, I don't think the idea of being cold is fun. I don't either. That's weird. But I'm thinking to myself, you know, maybe Scotty is trying to throw out some like unique date ideas that they've never done before, so that they can be a unique experience just for him and Zaina, instead of trying to do something that he has done with Arya so that he doesn't compare. I don't know. I was trying to say, you know, I can maybe see where you're going, but not really. And then this is when Scotty starts getting slick. Keep in mind, he has only thrown out 2 date ideas, right? A hot air balloon, which I wouldn't be for because I have a fear of heights. So I can understand why Zaina would feel like she'd have anxiety for that. And then cryotherapy. I feel like the hot air balloon was better. Zaina said no to both of those because neither of those sound like a good time to her. So Scotty gets slick and he's like, well, if you didn't want to get taken out, you could have just said so. And Zaina's face was mean because what do you mean? And then Zaina's starting to get confused and she's like, well, it was just those 2 options that I didn't want to do. I didn't say I didn't want to go out with you. And so Scotty is still being slick, saying, well, I guess we have different definitions of fun. And I guess so, because cryotherapy, and the more he's talking, the more he's getting an attitude, okay? And so Zaina is still confused, like, what's going on here? And Scotty says he has a problem with rejection. That was foreshadowing, you see? And she's like, but I didn't reject you. So he says he felt rejected because she didn't like the date ideas. I was flabbergasted, because if that's how you feel, I see why you were always having an attitude with Arya. But going back to, they're starting to go back into like that flow. But then Scotty finds out that Zaina ate without him and he gets a whole nother attitude. The way Scotty was acting, like she ran over his puppy because she did not eat with him, another red flag. I feel like Scotty makes a big deal out of small stuff, and when you always do that, it's no wonder that you are not happy in your relationship. It's no wonder that you always have an attitude. It's no wonder that you always feel unappreciated. But also, when he was getting an attitude that she ate without him and Zaina looked at him dead in the face, picked up that fork and continued eating her eggs, cracked me up. Because exactly, what do you want me to do? Because quite honestly, instead of Scotty getting an attitude, he could have gotten up, fixed him a bowl of cereal, and came back and sat down, and they would have been eating together. And then we see Nick and Mariah in the boxing ring. Honestly, I'm getting tired of Nick. Because at this point, I feel like even Mariah deserves better. Because every time Nick and Mariah meet up, Nick has this like laundry list of woes. And then he'll just look like that kicked puppy look that he be doing. He'll just look like that. And then it'll be Mariah's turn to speak. And I feel like all she can really say is encouragement. And I feel like it's because Nick be taking up most of the time talking about his problems. Oh, but also during the boxing ring, which is why I said Nick has some prejudice that he needs to examine, because he said he didn't like how JR was, or he made it sound to Mariah like JR was preventing him from seeing Sandy. Even though we all watched the clip, Sandy clearly did not want to talk to that man. Nick want to act like JR was preventing him from Sandy, and Sandy was trying to like get to him, but JR wouldn't let her, basically twisting the story for his benefit, okay? Then later in this episode, we get to ladies' night, okay? Ladies' night and guys' night is when stuff started popping off. So ladies' night is first. And they talk about how everything is going. Mariah lets them know Nick has been very in his head. This is when I said, oh, Mariah, peep it, clock it. Mariah said that Nick was very in his head and very in his art. And Sandy gets annoyed because that's escapism. Because it is. Instead of Nick processing his emotions and really trying to work through them, all he does is pour his emotions into art and think that he has worked through them. He has not. Which is why he keeps working himself up and keeps blowing up on Sandy or Mariah or JR, because he's not working through his emotions. Which I guess is good for his paycheck because he keeps paying more stuff, but it's not good for his partner because that does not a healthy relationship make. And then Mariah says after getting to know him, she doesn't think he'd make a very good husband. The way I died laughing, because that's what I was thinking. The more I saw Nick, the more I said, why do you want to be married? Mariah has known you for a couple of days, and even she said the same thing. I see why Sandy was dragging her feet on getting married. Nick is not ready. And I feel like Nick knows he's not ready. He just doesn't want to lose Sandy. Then we pop over to guys' night. I do like that Nick immediately apologized to JR until he kept talking, okay? He should have ended it with, I'm sorry for the way I came at you. That was disrespectful. That's an apology. But the way that he kept talking and making it about himself, I said, this is not an apology. You're just trying to make yourself feel better because you knew what you did was wrong. I will say, when Nick looked at JR and said, Sandy looks at you the way she used to look at me, honestly, I would have had to leave. If Nick is peeping that, oh nah, if I was Nick, I would have had to leave. Because again, there's no coming back from that. But I guess there is, because Nick really want him some Sandy, so. And then I think Nick asked JR about his ex, Zaina, and JR is not thinking about Zaina. He is not. He's on the Sandy train. He is not trying to get off. He will deal with that at the next stop when he hops back on the Zaina train. Like, he's not thinking about Zaina right now. And then the way JR talks about Sandy, once again, if I was Zaina, I would have to just leave. No words spoken, packing my bags, and I'm gone. Because remember, he said that Zaina, when he was with Zaina, it was a good time, it was fun, it was vibes. When he talks about Sandy, he talks about her mind, he talks about that fire, he talks about a spark, and all these different things that he does not mention when he talked about Zaina. And he said that Sandy challenges him and cares so much about him, and he can see why Nick wants to marry Sandy. He has never said anything remotely close to that about Zaina. We pop back over to ladies' night, and Sandy and Zaina are talking about JR. Sandy says they aren't hooking up. At this point, we can only assume that Sandy is telling the truth, even though them editing shots look a little different, but whatever. And there's nothing between them besides wanting to get the most out of this experience. I feel like that's a lie. I feel like that's a lie. The way Sandy and JR talk about each other, the way they're looking at each other, there's more between them besides just wanting to get the most out of this experience. Or maybe that is part of that, I don't know. Sandy and Zaina also talk about how JR is holding on to his past hurt from his last relationship, and when they're talking, I feel like both of them recognize that JR will have to do some internal work before he is ready for a long-term commitment like marriage. But then, I don't know, I felt a little bit of a way when Sandy said that she's trying to work on JR for Zaina. And then Zaina talks about how she doesn't get the reassurance that she needs, both, you know, verbal and physical, from JR, but she is getting it from Scotty. And I could see that. But then we pop over to the guys. Now, before they went out, Caleb told Aria just to say that what they have right now is a friendship, because he wanted to be the one to talk to Mariah about how their feelings were getting deeper for each other. I can see both sides. I do appreciate that Caleb wanted to be the one to say it, because like he was saying, Mariah is alone in this process. He wanted her to hear it from his own mouth. And I can also see why Aria talked about it, because she said she didn't want to feel fake. But we pop back over to the guys. They asked Caleb if, I think it's Scotty that asked Caleb if he's developing feelings for Aria. He says right now it's just a friendship. We all know that's not true. We all know that's not true. It may not be love, but it's definitely like, it's past friendship for sure. And then we cut to Scotty in his little confessional saying every guy that has caught feelings for Arya, they have not been friendship feelings. Like, don't play me like I'm dumb, okay? And I'm like, I hear him, because Arya is stunning, and she has such a good personality when she's with people. Oh, never mind. And then Scotty also says that Caleb's answer sounded so contrived, and I was like, yeah, because it was. And then we pop back over to the ladies. Mariah is talking about, or Mariah and Arya are talking. Mariah does not like how Arya talks about Caleb, because Arya has nothing but good things to say about Caleb, and she's feeling away. Arya tells Mariah, I do feel like that this was a little bit of an overstep, that Caleb doesn't feel trusted because of the over communication that Mariah said that she needed. But Mariah said she felt like the over communication was good because she thought that way there would be no like space for lies or second guessing or like wondering. She just thought that if she over communicates, that would be healthier than under communicating. Okay, she was overcompensating because all she's seen, I feel like, are toxic relationships. So she just did not want to be toxic. Somebody said, a little side note, but somebody said when all you have seen are toxic relationships and then you get into your first healthy one, you become the toxic person. Who said that? Oh, Arya said that. And Mariah was looking like, are you calling me toxic? I don't like that. I feel like she was not receiving what Arya was trying to say, because kind of like when you're driving and you make a bad turn, so you try to like overcorrect the next time. I feel like that's what Mariah is doing. She's trying to make sure that she's doing, you know, the opposite end of what she's seen in those toxic relationships, and that in turn is now pushing Caleb away because she's essentially doing too much. And then we leave off with Arya admitting that she does feel very strongly for Caleb. How do y'all feel about that? I can kind of see Arya when she said she did want to be transparent with Mariah. She did not want her to be blindsided by Arya's feelings and things like that. We pop back over to the guys, and remember, we're about to pull that master tool back out, okay? So JR says that he has heard from the streets. Okay, word on the street is that he is just here for a hall pass. Somebody is spreading this rumor, and he has been told that it was Scotty. Now Scotty is like, I never said that. What are you talking about? JR is saying, this is just what I've heard. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it now. So like, Scotty, did you say this or not? And Scotty is saying, no, I never said that. It's time to pull out our magical tool class, because who is the one that has been running around through all these episodes 1 through 5 calling JR a very unserious man, that JR and Sandy are just here for vibes? Who was it? Nick. Exactly. And the way Nick is looking when JR brings it up, I knew it was him. Maybe it'll be revealed in episode 6 or something, but I know it was him. I know it was, because he's trying to, everybody else is like, no, who would say that? And Nick is like, yeah. Who would say that? Then JR saying that he and Sandy have built such a genuine connection, and then Nick is like, so does that mean that y'all are sleeping together? Wait, okay, right. So I'm gonna do a visual representation, right? So JR is saying to the room, oh, me and Sandy have built such a genuine connection. Nick is like, oh, so does that mean y'all sleeping together? The way JR's head snapped to Nick's direction, looking like a deer in headlights, I said, oh, JR is talking about stuff. He fainted innocent so hard. He's like, I mean, in the same bed. Scotty and Caleb are like, you know that's not what he meant. We never get an answer to that question, because Sandy said that they are not hooking up. JR didn't answer that question, so we can only go off of Sandy's answer saying that they have not. But I feel like, because I think when Sandy was talking to Zaina, she was saying how she set the boundary that they are not going to hook up. But I feel like as soon as Sandy gives JR that green light, they are going to hook up. And then we fade to black, we fade to the preview, and the preview, I think, so I guess the next episodes, they're going to go back to their original partner. Ooh, baby. So we'll see how that goes. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it all the way through, shout out to y'all. Thank you so much. And make sure if you are not already subscribed that you do subscribe and turn on those bell notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. Go ahead and give this video a like if you like these type of videos, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.